Yeah, I'm not taking cocaine, but...
Well, maybe once or twice. When was the time where you thought to yourself, I need to seek help? How bad did it get?
Is this the new normal? Because I cannot live if this is the new normal.
Yeah.
It's a trigger.
I'm laughing because the irony with so much of this is it's stupid, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know,
no.
it took me a long time to find home. If you don't know what that is, you probably shouldn't be watching this. It's a bit of a weird one, maybe.
And once you realise that, you're like, oh my God, yeah, I am.
I appreciate you, brother.
Cheers, buddy.
Welcome, people. Welcome back to the Bites of Brains channel. And welcome to the very first episode of Ride and Reflect. It's taken a while to get here. I have alluded to it a few times, but logistically it's been a bit challenging. Here we are, and with none other than my good pal, Moss.
Hey, mate.
Hasn't this been a while in the making?
Yeah, man, it really has. We must have talked about doing a podcast 2021.
Yeah, it was.
Back end of 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in 2025 now, so at least 4 years ago.
At least 4 years ago. Moss and I went down a little road back in 21 where we were actually humming and ahhing about a different, well, similar podcast with similar theme, but maybe less about biking and more about more generalisation.
Well, it was going to be called Adversity, wasn't
Adversity,
it? So it is really a similar vein.
It is, very much so, yeah.
And I'm glad it's taking shape, mate.
Yeah.
For sure, honestly.
We got there.
Yeah.
Before we get into a bit of your background and what you do, etc., I wanted to. We've tried to tell this story a few times, and in some other videos. In fact, if you haven't watched it yet, there's a video called Stark versus Two-Stroke that's on the channel. Moss and I tried to get into a little bit of chat about this in the van on the way to shoot that, and we decided we weren't going to wear it. So let's tell people about how we met. You tell a story. Yeah, you tell a bit of the story about.
I think it is interesting.
Whilst you tell that, I'm going to crack a beer. By the way.
Cool. I'm going to crack a beer as well. So how did we meet, mate? It is a really interesting story. So
it is.
I genuinely we're not like embellishing this or making this into.
We're not.
So basically, Through a Facebook friend, I saw a two-stroke motorbike you were selling, enduro bike. I at the time must have had a load of cash floating around because I thought that'd be great, and I wasn't in the market, but I thought, sod it, let's just get a new motorbike, and it was yours. So I turned up, met you, did the quite, I'd call it quite a masculine, macho.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Exchange of like, is it fucked? Does it run? Checking it all over. Can I have a ride on it? Add a ride on it. So anyway, long story short, story short, I bought this motorbike, and it was that classic like sort of male interaction. And then, what was it like? It must have been 3 or 4 weeks went by.
I think maybe even more than that, mate.
Yeah.
Because as I recall, it was the end of summer when you bought it, and I remember, as you're going to say, bumping into you, it was like getting into winter, so it might have even been a couple of months.
So a couple of months went by, I didn't think anything about you, the bike was mint, carried on. Obviously we had friends in common, but we didn't really cross paths. And then we crossed paths in the woods at the top of a trailhead. We're both mountain biking, and we got chatting. Obviously you're a very, very chatty person, very likeable person. But,
understatement of the century.
Got chatting, and then for some reason, and I genuinely have no recollection of why this came into my head, I, at the time, wanted to make a film about anxiety, panic disorder, and what bikes could do for that person. And I just asked you straight, I was like, do you know anyone that rides and suffers with anxiety? And I think you asked, does this person have to be a professional mountain biker? And I said, no, it's just anybody.
Yeah.
And you turned around and were like, well, that's me.
Yeah, I'll do it.
And I was like, yeah, you're like, I'll do it. And it was wild. And the reason why that story is worth telling is because of that interaction, of that kind of masculine interaction of buying a motorbike and checking it all out.
Yeah.
I would consider you the last person to be in exactly the same position I was in. And we did. We had a coffee. I remember going around your house. We chatted, and your story was near enough identical in terms of like the suffering with anxiety and the symptoms of anxiety. Not obviously the backstory and the reason why you have anxiety was different, but like, it was so refreshing to find someone of a similar age, of a similar place in their life that has gone through the same shit that I went through. And that literally did something in my head, and I was like, you're not alone. There's other people out there that are going through this with you, and genuinely that probably was the turning point for me, like dealing with the anxiety that I've suffered with since I was 14.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what, like 10 years on, or more than that. 15 years.
Yeah. Well, I want to loop back to that actually, about the past and living with it without maybe even contextually realising.
Yeah, 100%.
But what I would say is that, like, we have both discussed since that time, because of that very sort of, especially with men, we tend to just be like, all right, mate, yeah, cool, cheers, bye.
It's that.
You know, it's a very, if we're totally honest, there's a lack of emotion in a lot of relationships between men. And our interaction of buying that bike, for instance, was, like you say, very transactional.
Yeah.
And what I think changed for me after that sort of first proper encounter at the top of the trailhead was it taught me that you can still be masculine whilst being authentic, such a cliche word.
Yeah, no, it's open, isn't it?
But it's
truly
openness.
Transparent.
Yeah. And by just that very brief encounter of us being really sort of showing an element of vulnerability, it taught me that moving on from there, that when I meet people, if I can do that a bit more, the loneliness and feeling like you're dealing with this by yourself. And I know that these sorts of chats will always go off on a tangent, but I think the link to that is a bit of victimhood.
Right.
And I'll show you why I think this is that, like, when you live in a world of victimhood, you feel special because you feel like you're the only person that's dealing with it and no one else knows what you're going through. I'm the victim, right? But once you start to sort of open up about these, like, difficult topics and realise you're not alone, I think it's the path out of victimhood.
100%.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. It literally just blew my mind that there was other people walking around feeling the same symptoms that I was feeling. I genuinely thought I was the only one.
But also within the same sort of area of your interests.
Yeah, exactly that.
You know?
So it's basically someone's living, you know, a very similar life that's suffering with the same thing.
Yeah.
But mate, we're gonna have to stoke this fire up because that is gonna go out.
She's going hard.
You've got the dry wood, I've got the wet wood. So we'll
have a bit on there.
That out. Maybe we'll put one on top as well.
And so after that, since that time, and I think that was actually 2020, end of 2020.
Yeah.
And then since that time, like, Moss and I actually have, like, had very many sort of bottles of wines and beers and talked about this mental health thing and, like, shared suffering, etc. Smoking us out now, aren't we?
It's all good.
And now we're good.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
And some things we have sort of touched on quite a bit is how biking has been a large part of our escapism.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's the escapism that, you know, I did, like, on my own before that, and then it was the thing that brought us together, and it was also the thing that made us open, you know, and decide to be transparent about something that I had never even, you know, talked about, let alone even considered in my own head. Really. And it was the bikes that brought us together.
Bikes was, absolutely.
It's kind of huge.
It is kind of huge, actually. Before we go on, do you want to just tell people what you actually do for a job? Because I think there's a lot of context around, you know.
So, judging by the setup of this podcast, I am actually, I run a video agency and I am a videographer. So that's what I do. So
what people can't see is the camera that Moss is staring at right now is a professional setup. The bits that I have brought round to start this series of YouTube podcasts, I'm not really sure what it is yet, is very amateur. So you can't see the bit that Moss is talking to, but that bit of kit's really pro.
Yeah, no. So videos. So social media. We do sort of testimonials and narrative films, and then brand films and commercials for companies, you know, across all sectors. So skiing, bikes, commercial, corporate, everything.
I would say that something that shines through in a lot of your work, though, is that it is very. I mean, I wouldn't claim to be an expert on this, but, like, as a layman observing your work, it's always quite emotive. That's kind of your style. I've always labelled it. Pulls people in.
atmospheric and emotion are the two key words that I've like used right from the get-go. Like I've now learned that they don't really mean anything. Like it's just words that I like using. But that's why that is why I've like designed the company like that. It is atmospheric and emotional. Like that's the two things I love.
Okay. And would you say that your love for that in some way stems from the struggle over the years? Are they linked at all, you know, between a bit of search for your own emotion versus...
It's not linked, and that wasn't the reason why.
Okay.
However, I do think that being like hyper empathetic is probably linked to anxiety.
Yes.
Like if you deeply care about everything, and you can see the vulnerability in everything, including yourself, you're just going to have anxiety. It's just... I think it's the way the brain works.
That's a really fantastic way.
Probably by me looking at the world like, you know, in this kind of like emotive and atmospheric way. It's probably the other way around, right? So I enjoy that kind of stuff because I am quite, I think, intrinsically empathetic.
And hypervigilant and all the other things, and a bit of a people pleaser and all the rest of it that goes with
right?
that sort of situation. Yeah. Okay. So Moss obviously makes films for a living, aside other things. But in your spare time, obviously bikes have been a massive part of your life since you, like myself, you know, like motorbikes came about in my early 20s, but mountain biking and pissing around in the woods has been a part of my life forever. But the same for you, or like, did you find bikes later in life? Or
I mean, I've grown up in the Forest of Dean where we are now. So like bikes, after school, you just grab your bikes and go and build some dirt jumps and ride and don't really worry about too much. So yeah, bikes are always a big thing. Obviously, when you discover cars, like in university, bikes just disappear. But it was really, I mean, for me, it was when e-bikes came out. It was when the first Special Evo came out, and I demoed that, and I was like, oh, holy shit, like this is ignited my love for riding again. And it was from then. So whenever that when was that?
When was that? Like
18?
Yeah.
I'd say 18.
But you've obviously Moss has got a KTM 690. But you had that. I mean, although that reignited your love for mountain biking, you've had motorbikes before that time as well, right?
Yeah, I had. What's my first bike? DT125.
Yeah. How many people have had a DT125?
Yeah, absolutely rip.
Did it have off-road tyres on it?
No, it's Supermoto, mate.
Of course it did.
So yeah, and this is a random aside. This right. I lie in bed. This sounds so stupid to most people, but I lie in bed, and it's one of those memories where you're thinking, "Fucking hell, did I actually do that?" That was like, and genuinely like not stressful, but like it's definitely a bit of a PTSD moment.
Yeah.
So I really wanted this bike. I always loved motorbikes. I needed a motorbike, and I was just had my student loan come in, year one of university. So the first thing you do is think, right, I got $3,000 to fund the motorbike. And obviously, I didn't have $3,000. I had like 1,800 quid.
Yeah.
And for an ET125, that's bottom money. So that's one that's ready for a scrap.
Yeah.
So I found one on Gumtree. It was my birthday, and Chantal, my girlfriend at the time, whilst my wife now, was visiting, and she didn't come up that often. She didn't live with me, so she was visiting. So I thought, right, I'll see you in like 4 hours. I'm going to go buy this motorbike. So I got a one-way ticket on the train to this bloke's house. Looked at the bike, looked at it, and thought, looks a bit fucked. And I was like, well, I've got to get home.
Is this effective on L plates as well?
Yeah, it's on L plates. Yeah. So bought it, paid full price because obviously there's no negotiation because I had a one-way ticket. And he was like, how are you getting home? And I was like, well, on that. So I bought it, looked at it, thought, it's a bit fucked. I got about 20 minutes down the road, started snowing because it was March. I was on racing slicks on the road, it started snowing, and about 40 minutes into the journey, my phone died. And then just after that, the temperature warning light came on the engine. So it obviously boiled itself. It obviously the head gasket had gone, boiled itself dry.
Right.
And I was like, at that point, probably hypothermic because I had a leather jacket and jeans on. And I had like another hour and a half ride to go.
Yeah.
Phone's dead. Reading by the road signs, didn't know where I was going. And I remember like thinking, I wonder what hypothermia feels like because I feel like this is it. You know, when you start to feel a bit like this is fine, and you're like, well, I'm actually really fucking cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that was first bike.
So that was your first bike.
Yeah, and I genuinely lie in bed thinking, like, that's the most stupid thing I've ever done. Like, which sounds stupid, but it's one of those memories. It's like just.
I think it's ironic with mental health as well because a admittedly, it depends on what type of anxiety you have. And one of the things I wanted to ask you in a minute is about your personal sort of, not type, but you know what I mean? Flavour, shall we call it, flavour of anxiety. Is it the trade-off with that is that for some people, it also makes them quite adventurous, I feel, because of seeking.
Yeah.
I feel like the anxiety for me is also like, as I've got older, I've learned to actually be grateful for those sort of like neurodiverse things that are going on in my head, because the seeking is also part of searching. And that is, for me, is part of the journey of wanting to go and do
a really good point, actually.
Crazy things. And I think the other part of it is that I have learned as I get older that fear that I feel to do things is also an indication that I need to do it.
Yeah.
You know, the whole we're gonna get into Moss's love with caves later, but cave analogies. But
no, I think you're right. I think like naturally, so hypervigilance is a word that will come up a lot with anxiety. And as you sort of, if you are suffering with anxiety, you'll learn what that means quite quickly.
Yeah.
I think that's just intrinsic, isn't it? I think if your brain is wired that way, you'll always be questioning things. You'll always be searching for things. Yeah. For me, that's obviously like I don't know. It's not obviously, but it is just like. Analysing yourself constantly, whether that's business or work or your health or whatever. It's just constantly scanning. Am I doing the best I can? Am I on like top form?
How exhausting do you find it sometimes?
Yeah, brutal. Yeah, absolutely brutal. And like,
do you ever have times? Where like you'd feel more tired than some of your pals or other people?
How do you know?
And you just I mean, before you really knew anything about it. Did you ever have times where you're like, why am I so tired, man? Like, I haven't done anything different to anyone else, but I'm like just exhausted. And that's how I get sometimes. Even now, right? Like, we'll move into this, but like, you know, we have a certain element of anxiety under control now.
Yeah.
Or we know how to work with it or work around it or whatever you want to call it. But I still have days where I haven't even realised I've been anxious, and then I'm absolutely knackered and I'm like, why am I so tired? And it's only objectively when I look back, I'm like,
it's like your brain is running flat out. You know, your brain burns, I don't know what the stats are, but as much energy as like, you know, your body
tons
does.
of calories.
And if your brain's is on like, if your brain's on 100 miles an hour, you're going to be tired.
And I guess it's not even calories, right? It's a nervous system thing. Like, you're on high alert all the time, aren't you? Your nervous system is just like, for want of a, you know, mind the pun, because this is a bike-oriented podcast, but you're on the lock stop constantly, aren't you?
You're flat out, aren't you?
So let me ask you two things, and they're linked. I already know the story about when you like had a really bad panic attack. The plane story I'm alluding to.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit about that, because I think I can relate, but lots of other people will be able to relate.
Yeah,
but also, does that link into your version of your own anxieties?
So the plane incident is when that was like what I would call the catalyst for my anxiety. I genuinely think if you suffer with anxiety, you probably always have done. And you probably always will do. Part of it is just accepting that is how your brain works. Mine was I was on a plane. I was going on a stag do, and essentially I just fainted. I was sat in a seat, essentially just fainted. But I think in the way in which it happened, just flipped something, and the fear of being on a plane unable to escape, combined with the kind of health scare that I was already typically worried about. It was just that trauma one too many, or one, you know, it was too strong, and my brain was just like, that's it, and it just spiraled from there.
So that was sort of the maybe catalyst isn't the right word. Maybe it because I guess a catalyst could come from in vitro or childhood or whatever, or just the way you're wired. We're all wired. Rather, what we should call it maybe is like when the issue came to the forefront.
Yeah, for sure. Mate, this fire needs a bit of work.
Yeah. She's
it's not
a bit damp, maybe.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. A bit of oxygen.
See the poke. It's all good.
Yeah, like when the issues kind of came to the forefront and made you actually aware.
It was more just like the panic was not few and far between, but it was like it was intense when it came, but I didn't know it was anxiety. From that moment on, it was like I still didn't know what. Okay, so the story continues, right? So I had that. I fainted on the plane. I was given the all clear, the medical all clear. When I landed, I was, blood test or whatever. They were like, probably just dehydrated. Gave me a drip. send you away. Had an amazing stag do. Came home, thought nothing of it, and then I was pitching to Specialized mountain bikes for some work. And obviously, it was dead important to me. They're like a brand I really wanted to work with. I love mountain bikes, and I felt like the same sensation in that pitch as I did when I was on the plane before I fainted. Okay. And something in me was like, you're going to faint. But to most people, who cares? Who gives a fuck? You faint.
Sure.
For me, it was like the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a combination of the setting and the stress of that plane incident. And yeah, it just sent me into full-blown panic. But at the time, you don't know that's panic. At the time, you think you're going to die.
Yeah, you do.
At the time, you're like, why can't I see properly? Why is my heart beating abnormally? Why can't I breathe? And why do I feel sick? And why is my vision going? In hindsight, it is probably anxiety. Most of those things are, they are stress related.
Totally. And I mean, and ironically, they can be for bad things in your life, or you can feel the same things for positive things in your life, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. And that's what you come to learn, is that those sensations are the same as excitement. It's
Absolutely.
just an overload of adrenaline.
Yeah. But in one sense, they have a negative connotation.
And when you're in it and you're fearful of it, because I was, it spirals. And it's, and I can't, to someone who hasn't had that, it's very hard to explain how powerful that is.
I mean, the best way I describe it to someone is, imagine you're in a dark alleyway, like, all right, guys, we don't need to be like, guys get scared too, right? Like, you're in an alleyway and something, or a wolf or someone with a knife or whatever, jumps out of the shadows, and your heart immediately is in your throat. And you're preparing to like run away or fight whatever's there. That's the only way I can describe it, only you can't run away from it in the moment.
That's it. It's very like all-consuming.
Yeah. And so in terms of like your version of anxiety, and maybe I'll explain, like my version of anxiety was predominantly health related. And the fear of that feeling. What would you say? Because to highlight this, some people have like they have issues with talking to public, or they have I forget exactly the name, but they're scared of leaving the house. Like, what's your personal version
mine
of
has
that?
always primarily been health related, which is, I guess, categorised as hypochondria. You're always
mad that we're so similar, man.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And typically I'm afraid that something like catastrophic is going to happen to you. So heart attack, stroke, those kind of things you can't do anything about. And it's interesting. As soon as you say that, I can feel it. So that's my version, but it doesn't. But it can be. It could be anything, couldn't it? It could be, like you say, someone's afraid to leave the house, or someone's afraid of fucking spiders to the point of they can't do anything. Let me. This isn't going to be very nice for you, but I think it's important. I want to take us back to Moss and I went on a. Moss got some work with Specialized, was shooting a film. I was also on that trip. We were actually in Scotland during sort of the COVID era, and we were having to eat in restaurants where there was lots of chaos with masking up and all this sort of stuff, right? And I remember we were sat in a restaurant and you you left, right? And no, the other people that were with us didn't really know what was going on, and I had a bit of insight into your life and know how you felt. You got up and left, right? Like what in those situations does like nothing was happening to you, but and you were in a safe space. But I'm trying to impart upon people like what it feels like to have a panic attack.
And why you needed to leave. Like, what did leaving achieve?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think so in that situation. So I can't remember it too vividly. I know the setting. I can picture it. We were sat at a table, and my whole thing was triggered by claustrophobia. So it's basically situations that it would be weird to leave, or you cannot leave. So a coffee with a mate, and it doesn't matter who it is. It can be a pitch. It can be whatever. You can't leave. It'd be weird.
I see what you're saying. Yes.
So in that instance, I was then trapped. With you guys, it was obviously slightly different, but I think the sensation and the mental pathways are still like really entrenched. You sat there, and to me, my personal experience of that is it's basically like a brain fog, the worst brain fog you've ever experienced. So you can't think, and it goes into your vision. So you can physically see, but it's like your brain can't process what you're seeing. And that becomes so intense that you just are convinced you're going to pass out. And passing out for me is pretty scary.
I'm exactly the same.
So it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until you break the situation by either leaving. I mean, leaving the situation is the only way, or accepting it, which I've come to learn is the way out. But in that moment, I didn't know that. So
that's what I was kind of hoping.
Just run, right?
That's what I was kind of getting at, because we have learnt that acceptance is. Maybe I'll talk more in a separate video about my personal anxiety, or maybe we'll reverse this and Moss can ask me some questions. But like, for the same as you, I had panic attacks over a period of time that made it almost impossible for me to leave the house at times.
Wow.
And for me, I couldn't personally get away from the situation, because in the early days I didn't know what the root cause of that was.
You don't.
And the passing out thing for me has been a large part of what I'm scared of, which is really weird, right? Because if you pass out, you don't know anything about it anymore. So what are you actually scared of? You know.
I know.
But just touching on the acceptance thing.
What it is, mate, it's loss of control.
It is loss of control. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, but weirdly, ironically and paradoxically, the way I have managed to mostly deal with panic situations is I almost G it on now. So when I feel, and I do still get these, by the way, guys, like I still get the occasional panic attack. In fact, very randomly, I nearly had one at work today. And I'm pretty sure it's because I was thinking about unearthing these emotions, right? Anyway, what I started doing was going, okay, cool, let's have it then.
Yeah, bring it on.
Like, bring it on. Let's do it right here in front of all these people in the middle of the office.
That's it.
And initially, the sensations peak. But do you know what? 9 times out of 10 now, what I realise is 10 minutes later, I'll suddenly be like, oh, that panic attack didn't come on. It's just, you know?
That's it. That's for me, that is the crux of overcoming anxiety. And like I said, it will never go away. I genuinely believe that. And I'd wager that. Like,
really?
Yeah. I think your brain is wired like that, and you will live with that.
I'm nervous about admitting it, because I also am a firm believer of, like, the thoughts that you allow in become reality. And I'm nervous about saying that because I don't want to believe it, you know? So I don't disagree, but I also don't necessarily wholeheartedly.
It's not to say that you will live with panic that is detrimental to your life. It's just
okay. I see what you're saying. Maybe you'll always have hypervigilance.
You'll always have. It's just how you're wired. Some people are ADHD. Some people are dyslexic. You can't cure dyslexia.
No.
I don't think you can cure anxiety. I think you can learn to live with it.
Yeah.
You can manage it and you can mitigate it.
Okay.
Because I still have them, and they are so fucking intense. So last Thursday, I had like the most brutal one I've had in 18 months. And it was probably a combination of like work stresses. Like the film industry is a little bit fucked at the moment.
And I think you start to question your place in this weird society that we live in right now.
But it's not even conscious, is it? Like, it's just, those things are just adding to your stress bucket. And
the cup's getting full.
The cup's getting full, and it reaches a point when, your subconscious says, right, we're going to shake you up a little bit today. Today, we're going to force you to go for a walk. And that's what I did, mate. And I was pretty, this is again, like how stupid it can be, but I don't mind saying it.
No, it's not stupid.
Convinced I was diabetic. Like, so where does that come from? How have I got there?
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I, was like really thirsty. And then I was like, well, I've eaten like a lot, and then I've got high blood sugar, and then I'm like, your body pees it out because it's got loads of glucose in it. So I bought an Amazon like blood tester. Like, that's bad enough because it's like it involves needles and blood, right?
I just have to say something here, because, bro, honestly, like, I'm sure lots of people can. Like, I can relate so much to this. How, like, I've bought blood pressure monitors, and I bought like an oxygen sensor for my finger, and I bought a CGM for a little while, because it both makes me laugh and makes me sad, because the thing that goes through my head is stressful, and I don't want anyone else to go through that. So to hear you saying the same, it makes me realise that so many of us are just it's same but different, right?
Yeah,
and
that's it.
so I feel you, man. That's tough.
But so yeah, obviously, like, and as soon as you test your finger, and I get 4.6, whatever it is, and
on the money.
That's like bang on the money,
Yeah,
and then it's done. That's put to bed. Like, that's done, and I'll be done for another 18 months, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah.
Until the next one. And then the thing is, mate, you learn that your brain finds ways to trick you, right?
Yeah.
So I've never worried about being diabetic before.
No.
Mine's normally heart attack or stroke.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a new one, and then your brain. But once I've learned that one, there'll be another one. 18 months will be another one.
Can I throw a curveball in here and ask you, is it your brain trying to trick you? And I don't know the answer to this. This is an open question. Or is it your brain trying to get you to listen?
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's what I mean. I guess it's trying to get its attention, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to get your attention. And basically, what I think, I can't be sure, but I think I've been really worried about work for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Since December.
I think you have. We've talked about it a lot.
Yeah. And then it reaches a point, end of February, and it's like, right, you know what? You need to fucking stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the only way I can get you to do that
is by giving you...
is to give you a massive panic attack.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
luckily, I've learned that is what it is. Yeah, get those logs on there, mate. It's a bit chilly out here. It's a beautiful location.
It is an absolute banging location. And it's giving us the light for a camera, so...
need to keep the fire going.
Keep it, literally keep, there's a metaphor for life, keep the fire stoked. Just checking my notes here, people. There's a couple of things I really wanted to ask you about. Moss and I wrote some notes down for this, and unknowingly we wrote separate notes, and I hadn't seen Moss's until now. And one thing you wrote down here, and I'll just quote it, is a lack of adversity and your brain will create problems for you to solve. Now, just before you answer that, something I wrote down was a little quote. Scarcity and hardship. Give man free access to, man or women, give man free access to money, food and sex.
Yeah.
And he shall be miserable.
Yeah, it's a beautiful quote, mate. It really is.
We wrote the same thing in different ways, right?
Yeah.
And the way I define that is choose your hard, right? Yeah. So maybe you could just touch on what you wrote, which is a lack of adversity and your brain will create problems for you to solve. Are we saying that if life's too easy?
I just think humans are wired to solve problems, and if your problems of food and shelter are taken care of, like, your brain will find other things to worry about.
Right.
And in my case, that is like your own health, your own financial stability, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
We're problem solvers. Like, we're designed. That's how humans have got to where we've got.
Yeah.
Designed to solve problems. If your problems are pretty taken care of, like, your brain still needs something to worry about.
Yeah.
It's not the line anymore. It's now going to be your own health or your own thoughts.
It's a very fair point. Yeah. Something something that I won't claim this is mine. I listened to something similar on a podcast, but is the element of movement, right? Now, whether that's exercise or moving in a car or in a plane, whatever people's thing, whatever your thing is, right? For us, it's very much two-wheeled. And why I related this to biking the other day is I listened to podcasts and they were saying that staying still in any bad situation in life means you fester in that negative space. Mm-hmm. What I took from that was, do we enjoy biking because there is an element of movement? And it feels like you're moving, not only am I moving through my thoughts, but I'm moving through time. I'm moving a distance. Yeah. Can you relate that to traveling, like moving away from the negative space? A forward momentum, kinesis.
Yes. Like, when you say that, my brain goes to, I've tried like EMDR therapy.
Yeah, I've tried that.
Which is like eye movement
desensitization
therapy. Yeah. And like, I think like the science behind it is that when humans move forward, like your body moves, so your eyes counter it, so your eyes move. So when the therapist is doing this and you're asking you to follow, and you're thinking about the trauma, you're doing that, which does something in the brain to desensitize you to it. I think it's just that.
Okay.
I think moving forward is like going to move you from the danger, which is probably hardwired into helping us relax. Like, if there's something scary, just fucking run.
Yeah.
So go for a walk, go for a run, go on a bike ride, move forward.
Yeah.
And it will help. Like, it just will. Like, that is...
No, I agree.
Yeah. Just, do your thing.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone that's listening will agree. Like, whether it's when you're feeling shit, just getting out and moving is good.
I think the moving forward thing is as simple as that. Like, if you're moving forward, it's going to get better.
Going to get better. Yeah. And something you wrote on your notes actually were to remember it will always get better. Now, I think we should not use that too lightly, because there'll be people that listen like, well, Moss, I've been in this spiral for 20 years and it hasn't got better.
But it does. Like, it will. Like,
I think if you're willing to learn that. You might not see it as this, but that is getting better, isn't it? You know, because you're learning more about it.
Mine is like, I want it hardwired into my brain that when you're at your lowest, it will always get better, and it will always get better.
Can I ask you something?
Because it does.
Sure. Yeah, and I can say the same, but I wouldn't say that this has come easy to either of us. Like, there's work that both of us separately and together have done. I haven't just. You do have to want to learn about yourself, you know, and to learn the reasons. I
think you reach a point of like a choice, don't you? Like, you either face it and you solve the problem, or you just let it crush you, and you don't leave the house ever again.
And let's just labour that a little bit, because something I wanted to ask you actually, and they're linked, is firstly, how bad did it get? Like, how dark did this get? And secondly, when was the time where you thought to yourself, I need to seek help?
Yeah, I mean, again, it feels like quite a long time ago, which I guess is a good thing.
Sure.
And it was like 10 years ago, probably. Yeah. When it kicked off from that plane journey onwards.
And was that the dark? You think that was the darkest point?
Nah, it was. It's the that you're kind of caught up in the moment. It's the kind of the 12 months after that when you're like, is this the new normal? Because I cannot live if this is the new normal. Do you know what I mean? Like, I try and go for a coffee with a really good mate. And I just want it to go. I just want it to be over.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I do.
You're cooking dinner at home in your kitchen, and you just want to go to bed.
Yeah.
Like, some people categorise that as depression.
Well, I think one kind of goes in hand with the other, doesn't it?
No, that's it. Yeah, I honestly would, hand on heart, never call myself depressed. Never have experienced depression, but.
I think anxiety for me causes some depression.
It does a bit, yeah. But yeah, that was the lowest, and that's the point when I think you've either got to accept that you change something, or you just accept that is the new normal. And I was like that. I was like, well, I can't work because filmmaking is meeting people. It's driving in cars. And that's the other thing. So to drive, I love driving. I love cars.
Yeah.
Driving became
I forgot about that.
Yeah, driving became a big thing because. Especially when you're on motorways, and more so smart motorways, you can't stop.
Yeah.
Like, you're just on it. So I was like, well, if I faint now, I'm going to kill like 10 people. So that became a massive trigger.
I'm laughing because the irony with so much of this is it's stupid, isn't it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was probably it. And then, I sort of, And also, mate, honestly, finding someone who's been through it before, gives you a little bit of, in a sick kind of way, a bit of hope, because it's like you're not alone and you're not fucked up, because there's other people that are in the same position.
I don't think that's sick, man. I think...
No, but it's good.
I know what you mean. You don't want to wish it on someone else,
you don't want to wish it on someone else,
mean,
but equally, if someone else is going through the same thing, it's like, well, you bring it on together, you know, you can...
Yeah.
You can...
but you've also sought help with some therapy as well, like I did.
So therapy, it's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So when it first kicked off, I was like, oh my God, I fix this. I tried NHS. That was really, really bad.
Yeah, mine too.
Wouldn't recommend that at all.
No. Well, I would recommend that you try it, and you might get lucky, because I wouldn't want to advise someone that don't get help.
Sure.
But I personally also had a bad experience with it.
And that was like traditional CBT therapy. And then I tried this, I tried 4 therapists actually. Then it was EMDR. This was during COVID. So it's like, obviously, 10 years prior, that was the catalyst. Tried to seek help then, squashed it down a little bit. It got really bad pre-COVID, and tried EMDR therapy. Yeah. Which is incredibly powerful. Like, I think try it. For me, it just didn't hold. It didn't stick.
Yeah.
in the moment, it's really it's insane. It's
Yeah.
really, like as soon as he does the thing, it's like the trauma's gone, which is wild. Can't explain how that works.
Yeah.
But it's powerful. Then I tried like a therapist who just told me that how hard life was and that I was I was great, and there's a tissue if I wanted to cry, and I was like, what the fuck is that gonna do?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, life's hard for everyone. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, so and then I found this therapist. She was local, but she wanted to do it on Zoom, and it was like and she's £100 a session. Probably spent 800 quid. The best 800 quid I've ever spent. Like, from spending that 800 quid, it's allowed me to like get married, because I didn't want to get married because I didn't want to be doing a speech.
I remember having that conversation with you.
It's allowed me to do like public speaking with work. I'm now doing stuff on camera. Like, I would never have agreed to this prior.
Yeah.
Because I'm stuck here for 45 minutes, an hour.
Yeah.
I can't just get up. Well, I can just get up and leave. Of course you can. But like,
oh, dude.
you're locked in, right? So it's changed your life. Like, genuinely changed. 800 quid, best investment I've ever made. And she took a really interesting approach whereby we tested the theory. That's essentially, in a nutshell, what you do.
Yeah, that was one of your notes, actually. Test the theory. So tell us what that means.
She was like, "What are you scared of?" And I was like, "Well, I'm scared I'm going to have a heart attack when I come back from the gym."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Okay, that's interesting. Well, in the week before next session, why don't you do 5K?" And I was like, "Well, just run a 5K." And she's like, yeah, what are you scared of? Like, your heart's going to give out. And I was like, well, yes, actually, yeah, I am. And so you go and do it. So I was like, well, sod it, I'll just go and do it. I'll see what happens. And she was like, as soon as you want to stop, that's the indicator, do not stop. You need to push. It's like, imagine a pendulum, and I'm going to butcher this, but it's like a pendulum, right? And most people's normal is straight down.
Yeah.
You are like skewed to like, the extreme. And so sorry, most people's normal's here. So like most people, I would stop here. I want you to push it to like the extreme.
Right.
So you need to go way harder than normal. And that basically will reset you. And then once you've got to that, like, oh my God, I'm actually going to die now. So don't stop when you think you're going to die.
Yeah.
Push yourself 10 times harder until you're convinced you're going to die.
It's a risky theory, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not, is it? Because like, you're not going to die from running 5K. No one's going to die from running 5K unless you've got a real like pre-existing medical. And even then, you tested the theory and you found out what the problem is.
Right.
Fuck it.
Right.
But if you don't believe that, so push yourself, and then come back next week. And she was like, "What did you learn?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I learned that I could do that.
Yeah.
I pushed myself harder than I've ever been." And she was like, "Right, well, you're never going to be in that situation ever again, unless you're doing a marathon. In normal life, your body's never going to be pushed that hard."
Right.
Like, what else are you scared of? I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "What about when you get like too hot and too sweaty?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, maybe."
Yeah.
Like when I'm stuck in a plane or something, I'm sweaty and hot. It's horrible. It triggers me. She's like, "Okay, well, right." It was in the summer. She was like, "Right, heat to maximum in the car. I want you to drive to work, and then as soon as you feel panic, like just dial it up even more. Put the heated seats on." And I'm there like, "Oh fuck, this is hot." And then come back next week. She's like, "What'd you learn?" It's like, "Yeah, it's fine."
I guess.
And then she's like, "Right, apply that to everything in your life. Like, what are you scared of now?
Yeah.
What are you scared of now? Do it. Test it." And it's so I promise you, mate. Like, I literally wish I'd told myself this 10 years ago.
You could summarise it as feel the fear and do it anyway.
Mate, the cave you fear holds the treasure you seek. I love that quote, mate. Like,
did you see that I used it last week? In
did you?
Yeah,
I didn't see it, mate,
Moss uses this this cave analogy. What is it? The cave you fear holds the treasure you seek.
Yeah, that's the short version. But
yeah, and I have stolen it and used it a few times. As did Moss steal it, I'm sure. But,
yeah, I heard it in a film.
Yeah,
but you hear these things and you're like.
Yeah, it resonates, right?
You're like, that's it.
Yeah, it resonates.
Yeah,
totally.
And it's so true, mate. Like the fear you feel is that signpost.
Yes.
And it's saying what you want in life is in that cave or behind that thing.
You're absolutely right.
So if you're scared of public speaking,
you
need to be public speaking, because that is what's going to accelerate you. If I was I was fucking terrified of doing a speech at a wedding.
Yeah.
And then one of my best mates was like, "Oh, do you want to be a best man?" And I was like, in my head, I'm instantly like, "No,
I absolutely do not."
And he's like, "Well, you've got to do a speech," and he's taking the piss, and I'm thinking, "Fuck me." And then, I just like. To be fair, I gave myself an hour. I told him I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
And then I did it. And I'm so glad I did. Because then it meant I could do it at my own wedding. And I could do it at someone else's wedding and I could do...
Sure, you can do it again.
Do an event, yeah.
I think you do have to find in life some things that do resonate with you and have meaning.
I think it's different for everybody, right? And the pushing yourself to the limit worked for me.
Sure, it might not work for everybody.
Don't know if it's going to work for everybody, but I do think, test, like, if it's that kind of like, if it's that flavour of anxiety.
Flavour, I like that.
Then test
like
it.
Like a variety pack of walkers.
Yeah, like, I just think it's the way out. If you're terrified of leaving the house, leave the house until you're fucking bawling on the ground.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
But nothing's going to happen.
It's like a worst case scenario, isn't it? You're testing the worst case scenario, really.
Yeah.
And then what you ultimately find is that the worst case scenario isn't as bad
That's
as you...
the new person's normal.
Yes.
And it resets that pendulum, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the main thing 800 quid taught me. It was great.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're going to play therapy trumps, it took me a little bit longer to find... here's something interesting, actually. It's a conversation in itself. I'm probably £6,000 or £7,000 deep with therapy over the last sort of 7 or 8 years. And therapy did help me. But I tell you quite honestly, and I mean, I've told you this before, but for the benefit of everyone watching, the thing that changed my life was genuinely finding my people. I think I have, I didn't realise, but a lot of my life was very pillar to post with anxiety and not knowing that that's what was I was running away from all the time. Cut a very long story short, it took me a long time to find home.
Yeah.
And, with yourself and some of our other mates that we've got, it was only when I found like where I felt anchored that I could start to actually work on myself.
Yeah, that's it.
And once that started to happen, I realised that what I had actually spent a lot of time doing and being was a victim of my situation.
Yeah.
And when I realised that I had to take responsibility for my own situation, that was the changing point for me. I do
think that's a weird one, mate. That's the one thing I haven't quite figured. I'm not figured any of it out really, but that victimhood thing. I remember saying to you once I'd had that therapy and I'd kind of felt powerful. I was almost like I kind of in a fucked up way. I kind of missed the anxiety because like,
dude,
it's weird and I don't quite know why. But my thing is a fucking hell of an adrenaline ride.
Yeah.
Like. I don't know whether you're addicted to that or what, but
something I wrote down was that staying in a negative space or spiral also triggers the same adrenal system as taking cocaine.
Yeah, I'm not taking cocaine, but
maybe once or twice, many years ago when I was a very lost soul. But the point of this is that it is addictive. And the story that we tell ourselves also becomes addictive.
Yeah.
And the risk is, I believe, that when you become addicted to the story you tell, that is when you are rooted in victimhood, because it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's it just
no, I do agree with that, mate.
It's a reciprocal cycle where you feed yourself.
And as soon as you label yourself as and I'm anxious or I have anxiety, you just fall into that. And I think that's one of my. I can feel myself like go, oh God, it's like World Mental Health Day. I just feel like, oh my God, that label just fucks me off, man.
Yeah, no, it does me as well.
I can't put that any more succinctly, but it's just like, you can't put it into a fucking label, man. Like you can't just have it as a day or like, I'm sure it's any of those things, but obviously we just feel more passionate about that one because
of course.
It, but it's tricky. I don't think label it. I think just fucking accept it and talk to other people, mate, is the biggest thing. Like I said, I met you. That's like massively changed my life. If I hadn't met anyone else with anxiety, I may never have had that therapy and got to where I'm like pretty happy now. So
when you're riding bikes, actually, what do you think personally has a more positive impact on you? Is it riding mountain bikes, or do you think it's riding motorbikes? It's trivial. It's a trivial question, but I'm intrigued.
Nah, I think mountain bikes are more chill, right? So you've got more.
Do you?
I think they've got more of like the nature element and more of like the physical element.
I agree, but I think the type of mountain biking we tend to do is gnarly.
Yeah.
Like Moss rides a lot of. We were going to touch on this, but Moss has a Stark Varg.
Yep.
If you don't know what that is, you probably shouldn't be watching this. So Moss has a Stark, so he rides a fair bit of track on it.
Yeah.
would you not say that is more adrenaline inducing than riding your mountain bike?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So riding a Stark is less chill.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I missed. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
The Stark is like, it clears your head in a different kind of way because you're focused on survival. But like, I think to combat anxiety, I think a balance is good, right?
Yeah.
So something that is slightly exciting, it's exciting enough that you can't focus on the stuff that you're worried about, but also there is an element of like nature, quiet, peace.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go and ride in the Stark if I was already feeling anxious because I'd fucking explode.
Do you think? Okay,
yeah,
you genuinely don't necessarily use it as an escapism for when you already feel anxious.
If I'm feeling anxious and I can feel like myself getting stressed and worked up, I will actively try and chill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Be in that moment a bit more.
Yeah, and bikes will be a part of that. Mountain biking will be a part of that.
Okay.
Going for a walk, going for a hike will be part of that. Maybe like a cruise around on a motorbike potentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, riding track on the Stark is.
No, it's not the one.
Maybe, I don't know. Who knows, man? Like if a mate rang me up and said, "Do you want to go for a ride tomorrow?" And I had nothing else to worry about. Like, yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
I just think it's fucking intense, and also like I'm not very good at it, so.
Yeah, I beg to differ. You're above average on it, but
don't know.
Do you personally think, this is a bit of a weird one maybe, do you personally think that you can get addicted to a good thing as well as a bad thing? So to give you context, I personally have at times felt that I have got addicted to the good times that bikes bring me.
Yeah.
And I sometimes feel that maybe that is as unhealthy, well, maybe not as unhealthy, but is still maybe unhealthy, you know? What's your thoughts on that? For people, for some listeners that you get addicted to exercise, or they.
Yeah, I've not related to that per se, being addicted to it. I don't know, man.
Tough question.
It's a tough question, isn't it? I don't know. I instantly folded my arms. You see that?
I know. I saw. Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't think you get addicted to it. I just.
The reason I ask is because I personally have felt myself sometimes avoiding things that maybe I should be doing to go and do the other thing because it brings me.
Okay, fine.
So it brings me. Maybe this is what you were saying earlier about getting addicted to the adrenaline.
Yeah.
Like when you've spent a large amount of your life living in a high adrenal state, and then you naturally choose hobbies that also bring on a high adrenal state.
Yeah.
Although one thing has some positivity attached to it.
Yeah.
Is it still healthy or not? Do you know what I mean? Because
I do know what you mean there, and I do find I find myself organising my life around doing pleasurable things, so mountain biking, motorbikes. Whereas I look at other people and they're quite content with working a 9 to 5 and then looking after the kids on the weekend, and I feel like we're like, I don't know, if we had a choice, we'd go riding, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, and just you organise your life around that.
Slight dopamine addiction,
potentially, maybe.
And I mean, society wants you to be a dopamine addict nowadays, anyway. So
you
know, it lends itself to that, regardless. But, so that's kind of segues into Moss has done a fair bit of 50-50 riding on like a 690. A dual, what Americans would call dual sport.
Dual sport, yeah.
But and years ago, I did a lot of touring on like a sports tour around the Alps. So I've done plenty of trips on motorbike, but not the 50-50 stuff. And actually, riding off-road, really, I've done a lot of that with Moss, solely off-road, like enduro type stuff, and mountain biking. And I've recently bought what you'd call a dual sport motorbike.
Yeah.
And man, I am like
really?
hook, line and sinker with
That's
it.
Cool. Yeah.
And I think what that brings me is, so for people that listen that do ride motorbikes, you will understand that riding on a track is very much an adrenaline inducing activity. Riding enduro bike off-road, for me at least, is hugely adrenaline inducing, especially when the pace gets up. Riding on track, motocross track, terrifies me, even though without sounding like a knob, I'm reasonably good on a mountain bike at jumping and stuff.
Yeah.
A motocross track on a motorbike terrifies me. I think the thing that I really love about riding the sort of more dual sport motorbike is that it ties in a little bit of that fear-inducing adrenaline, but also there's a beginning, a middle and an end in terms of like a journey.
Yeah.
And that is like, you can share that with people.
That's the thing, mate, I love it. I love the long distance trips. I absolutely love, because it's like, I think it's something primal about surviving. Like, it's just you, the bike, you know, you're trying to get somewhere, and the stuff that comes along the way, like the
mishaps,
the punches, the fucking,
we've
had bikes snap in half. We've had like punches where you got no, you know, your fucking rear wheel won't come off. We've had disc locks, you know, like break, stay on. But it's like the memories are mint. Like,
a mint.
Honestly, yeah, we've camped like in the Portuguese on the coast. We were like, we'll use a hammock. We'll just camp on the beach. It'll be sick. And then it gets down to like 4 degrees, and you're like shivering, thinking, what the fuck are we doing here? But it's mint. It's quality.
I really enjoy that, and this is a bit weird. I really enjoy the moment where you get up in the morning and you put your stuff back on the bike.
And
then you start the bike, and you know, I don't know, it has this connection with sort of like the basics.
Yeah, that's it.
Something I did want to ask you actually. My thoughts with motorbiking is, because by nature of motorbiking, it is quite a vulnerable thing. You know, like you're out, you're wearing like some leathers or some clothes, and you're out in the elements. You're not protected by the shell of a car or your house or whatever. And for me, because it is by virtue more vulnerable, I feel that like that personally has helped me engage with other people, because when you're traveling by motorbike, when you go through a town, I find that that people are more interested in having a conversation with you than if you get out your car outside a shop. Do you know what I mean?
It's different, isn't it? And you just see way more places, mate. Like the trips through Spain, where, you know, you're going through these like deserted villages that you would never go to. Why would you go there? But just because it's on the TET. I mean, the TET is an amazing thing that someone, I don't know who created that, but
the Trans-Euro Trail is
awesome.
Is quite impressive.
And we've got one coming up, mate.
We have. That was one of my points here. Yeah, we have got one coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, Moss will probably help me because he's an expert at it, but I'm going to try and film some of it. Which is going to be amusing, because it's going to mightily piss some of the other lads off when I'm constantly pulling the camera out in front of their face. But they must be used to it from you anyway. So I mean,
yeah, mate, it'd be good.
It's actually going to be quite a cool dynamic, because Moss, I know the guys that are Moss's mates that are coming on this trip, and Moss loosely knows the guys that my closer mates that are coming on this trip. Some of you will have met Matt, my mate that I do some trips with, and my other mate Tim that does some stuff. But I would say, to categorise it kind of, or to draw a line in it, we are kind of two groups of friends coming together to do this motorbike trip. And it is actually two very different dynamics, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it really is.
So I'm really excited for it, actually, because you and I are kind of the glue that's going to pull them together, you know?
There's a good spectrum of absolute loose cannon to like safety boy.
Yeah, big time.
So, yeah, it's going to be fun. I won't say who's who, but I'm sure
no, people can work it out. I think actually what we should do, and maybe we'll do this, is whilst we're away, we'll shoot one of these with everyone sat round. And I tell you what we should do is a couple of the lads, or I know at least one that talking about mental health he won't want to talk about. So we'll pull some of that out of him. And also Moss is unfortunately away, but I am actually planning a trip in 2 weeks where I'm going to ride from the southeast corner of Wales to the northwest corner of Wales in one go, using nothing but off-road and B-roads.
That's cool.
It's 414 kilometres and only touch an A-road for 3 kilometres the whole trip. I'm going to try and do it in a oneer.
No way. That's
so
cool.
I'm looking forward to that. The last thing I really wanted to ask you is, well, you answered some of it actually, which was, do you think anxiety ever leaves? And your kind of thoughts on it were?
I can hand on heart say no, it will never leave you. Like, it's just how you're wired. It's in the blokes in my family. It just is.
Yeah.
It just is. Like,
If you could take one or two things that you've learned off the back of dealing with this for the last few years, and simplify that for the layman and say, you just need to go, like you absolutely need to do this.
Yeah.
What would you? I know we've gone over a lot.
It's tricky, isn't it? I think everybody has a different flavour of anxiety, and it'll probably require different sorts of treatment. My two things are it will always get better.
Yeah.
You know, when you're at rock bottom, you will find a way out, or you'll get crushed by it. But you will find a way out.
Don't choose a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah, that's it, right? And yeah, in my experience, like I said, the cave you fear holds the treasure you seek.
It's so beautiful,
whether
isn't it?
whether that is accepting external help, professional help,
Yeah.
or whether you just because the thing we fear in the moment is fear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that moment, the thing you fear most is the fear. Just accept the fear, because that's the signpost. It's like just go into that.
Yeah.
What are you actually afraid of in the moment? And it's like, yeah. And the other thing that I've learned is the word hypervigilance, which the therapist mentioned to me, and I'd never heard it before. And she said basically you're constantly scanning, you're hypervigilant for any threat, and that's basically the loop that you've got stuck into.
Yeah. A negative feedback loop.
Negative feedback loop, and and once you realise that, you're like, oh my god, yeah, I am. Everything is a constant. Am I under threat? Financially, am I under threat? Business, am I under threat? Health-wise, is it under threat? And it's like once you learn that you're fixating on those things, you can just let them go and you can just let them be.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's the thing that I wish I knew.
That's brilliant.
Earlier. And also, there's 1,001 other people out there like.
Yeah. Funny you say that, because I was going to kind of end on saying that, like, I'd like to give people a bit of homework, and what I would say is, like, just try doing what Moss and I unknowingly did at the top of that trailhead, and just try being open with someone that you haven't been open with before, and see where it leads. Because quite honestly, man, like, as two guys sat here, like, I'm hugely grateful that we crossed paths, like, it's changed my life for the positive, and here we are doing this thing now, hoping that people were interested in what we have to say, and we ride bikes together and we have some adventures together. But like, if we hadn't just taken that sort of kind of brave step and been open, none of this may have happened.
No,
like, I may have not had this awesome experience at your wonderful wedding in Tuscany last year. Like, we might not have these trips planned, we may not have had these adventures together. Exactly, like, these things might just not happen. So your homework is to go away and, like, when next time you're in a situation like that, just try and be open.
That's really cool.
And something that I want to become a bit of a thing on these is that I want to give you a hug, and I want to say I appreciate you, brother.
Cheers, buddy.
Right, guys. Well, episode 1, Ride and Reflect. I hope you've enjoyed this sort of real honest insight into our life. Moss, if people want to follow your professional activities, where should they?
Singularity Film.
Singularity
Film.uk at Singularity Film.
And if anyone, I'm sure if anyone wants to, like, ask Moss any questions or hit him up personally,
I'm dead passionate about helping anyone that has any form of anxiety, whether it's panic disorder, anxiety, hypochondria, whatever it might be. You're
Moss Davis. Instagram, you could drop him a message. I'm sure he'd be keen to chat.
Yeah, do it.
Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Please do the obvious: like, share, subscribe. It helps. It's going to help me bring more of these to the screen. And if you've got any suggestions of what you'd like to see in the future, if you've got some stories that you'd like to tell yourself, then of course hit me up. Bites for Brains on Instagram, Bites for Brains on YouTube. And thanks very much. See you in the next one.